Ladies and gentlemen, maybe you have heard of the following great names from history: Marco Polo, Hernan Cortés, and Richard the Lionheart. These are all great explorers, travellers, and voyagers. They have told us a great deal about the world as it was in the past. But there is one of the great explorers who is less well known. He is Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta lived during the 14th century. He explored the length and breadth of the Muslim world. And indeed, this may well be the very reason why you haven't heard his name before. The other explorers I mentioned at the beginning of this speech helped shape the Western world. Ibn Battuta, on the other hand, was born in 1304 in what is nowadays Morocco. At the age of 21, he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca. This is customary for all Muslims, of course. However, what was different about Battuta's trip was that it lasted 30 years and covered more than 100,000 kilometers. Battuta's main aim was to broaden his knowledge and experience. He felt encouraged to do this by the words of Muhammad. He travelled by foot, by boat, and on the backs of camels and donkeys. Battuta had a clear vision about the countries he visited. He believed that they were all part of a shared world of Islam. He believed that all Muslim countries were unified in one divine community. However, although all the countries he visited shared a great deal, Battuta still saw a huge amount of variety from one place to the next. For example, in Turkey he was surprised at how women were dominant over men. In the Maldives he was shocked at the scandalous clothing the people wore. And in Central Asia he was taken aback by the unorthodox practices he witnessed. As a matter of fact, this diversity in the Muslim world did not only exist in the 14th century. If you travel around the same countries that Battuta visited today, you will see a great many differences. Just the other day, I spoke to a friend who had just returned from Turkey. He told me about his trip, which had lasted 2 weeks. He said how it seemed strange that there were mosques at every corner, and that on the face of it, Turkey seems to show a great deal of religious devotion. Well, that on the one hand, but on the other hand, what was strange was that at the same time Turkey resembles other European countries in many ways. It has the same pop music and the same obsession with football. Then my friend told me something which really reminded me of Ibn Battuta. My friend said that during his trip he had met people from all over the Muslim world: Palestinians, Moroccans, Syrians, and Kurds. Although it was very clear that each of them has a very different culture, background, and outlook on the world, each of them saw themselves as being part of one world unified by Islam. However, there is one key difference between the world as it was at the time of Battuta and the world as it is today. When Battuta was on his travels, the Muslim world was in its prime. Nowadays, although Turkey is going through a very successful period with impressive economic growth, this is not really the high point of Turkey's history. And if we look at the history of the Muslim world in general, we could say that it's not exactly the high point of that either. If you visit Istanbul, you can see the extravagance and wealth of the Ottoman Empire as it was in the past. These are the true vestiges of the greatest period in Turkish history. However, all of this was created after the time of Battuta, so he was not able to see it himself. Nonetheless, Battuta was able to see other great Muslim civilizations, such as Granada in Spain, Mogadishu in Somalia, or Calcutta in India. He also travelled and visited the north of Africa, a part of the world which appears regularly in our news bulletins today. Nowadays we are witnessing deep changes in these and many other Muslim countries around the world as a result of the wave of revolutions which began in 2011. Wouldn't it be interesting to know what Battuta would have said if he saw these revolutions today? Well, there have been huge changes over the centuries in terms of travel and communication. We can now travel more easily and more cheaply than ever before. However, I know that however much I may want to, I will almost certainly never see all of what Ibn Battuta was able to see in his life. Nonetheless, his life and his stories are still an inspiration for me. Maybe one day I'll get the chance to follow in his footsteps across the Muslim world, or at least part of it. Thank you.